The wind howled across the broken land, carrying dust and ash through the empty ruins. The night sky above was cold and endless, with no warmth, no light, no hope. In the middle of this wasteland walked a girl, her steps weak, her body trembling, her eyes heavy with hunger and fear. She had no home, no clothes except torn rags, no place to rest. Her bare feet cut against the sharp stones as she wandered through the dead city. She had once belonged to a great people, but war had stripped everything from her. Her family was gone, her village burned, and her people scattered like shadows. Now she was alone, completely alone. The girl wrapped her thin arms around herself. As the cold grew sharper, she had not eaten in days, and her throat was dry as sand. Every sound in the distance made her flinch, because she knew the hunters were still out there. They hunted the weak, the lost, the forgotten, and she was all 3. Her heart pounded when she heard footsteps behind her. She froze, pressing her back against a broken wall. Her breath came out in short gasps as her eyes searched the dark. Shadows moved between the ruins, tall figures with glowing eyes, the hunters. They laughed as they moved closer, carrying weapons that dripped with cruel purpose. The girl tried to run, but her legs betrayed her. She fell to the ground, her body too weak to carry her away. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered to herself, "Please, not now, not yet." She closed her eyes, waiting for the end. But then, a voice cut through the night. It was not harsh, not cruel, not like the hunters. It was deep, steady, and human. "Stay down," the voice whispered. "Don't move." Figure stepped out of the shadows, standing between her and the hunters. He was tall, wearing armor scratched from battles, holding a weapon of iron and fire. The hunters growled, anger flashing in their glowing eyes. "Human!" one hissed. "This is not your fight," but the human did not move. His voice was calm but filled with fire. "Then make it mine." The battle that followed shook the night. The human moved like lightning, striking with skill and fury. The hunters were strong, but his will was stronger. The girl watched with wide eyes as the human fought for her life, a stranger he had never known. One by one the hunters fell, their bodies crashing to the ground. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the girl's trembling breath. The human turned toward her, lowering his weapon. He knelt beside her, his face kind but worn with scars of many battles. "You're safe now," he said softly. The girl stared at him, unable to believe. Why would a human fight for her? Why would anyone? Her lips moved, but no words came. Her world had been filled with pain for so long she had forgotten what safety felt like. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she collapsed into his arms. The last thing she heard before the darkness claimed her was his whisper, calm and steady. "You're not alone anymore." The cold wind still howled through the ruins, but for the first time the girl felt something warm. It was not food, not shelter, not even the fire in the human's weapon. It was the warmth of hope, fragile but alive. And in that moment, she believed that maybe, just maybe, her story was not ending, but only beginning. When the girl opened her eyes, the first thing she felt was warmth. Not the cold wind of the ruins, not the burning sting of hunger, but warmth, soft and real. She lay on a rough blanket, inside a small shelter built from stone and metal scraps. A faint fire glowed in the corner, its light chasing away the shadows. The human sat nearby, sharpening a blade with slow, careful strokes. His armor rested against the wall, dented and scarred, proof of many battles. When he noticed her awake, he set the blade aside and spoke gently. "You're safe here, no one will hurt you." The girl tried to sit up, but her body was weak. He quickly moved to help her, lifting a bowl of steaming broth. "Eat," he said, holding it out. "You need your strength." She stared at the bowl suspiciously, her large eyes filled with fear. In her world, kindness was rare, and trust was dangerous. But the smell of food was too strong, and her hunger was stronger than her fear. She took the bowl in trembling hands and sipped. The warmth spread through her empty stomach like fire through dry wood. Tears burned her eyes, but she forced them back. The human watched quietly, not pressing her with questions. He seemed to understand that she had carried too much pain. Finally, he said, "My name is Aaron." The girl looked at him, hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra." Her voice cracked from thirst and silence, but it was the first word she had spoken to anyone in days. Aaron gave her water, clean and cool. As she drank, she noticed his face in the firelight. His eyes were tired but steady, and there was no cruelty in them. For the first time in a long time, she felt she was not being judged, not being hunted. Yet inside her heart, fear still whispered, why would a human protect her? Humans and her kind had fought before. They were not allies. They were not friends. So why risk his life for her? As the night deepened, the storm outside grew louder. Rain hammered against the roof of the shelter, and the wind screamed through the cracks. Lyra shivered and pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Aaron added more wood to the fire, the flames rising brighter. He glanced at her and spoke softly. "You must rest, but tomorrow, we'll need to move." Her eyes widened. "Move? Why?" He looked at the fire, his jaw tightening. "Because the hunters won't stop. They'll come again, and if they find this place, they'll kill us both." Her chest tightened with dread. She thought she had finally found a safe place. But even here, danger followed her. Still, when she looked at Aaron, she saw something steady, something that refused to break. He was not just protecting himself, he was protecting her. Lyra lay back down, her mind racing. She wanted to ask why. Why he cared, why he fought, why he stayed. But her strength gave out and her eyes closed once more. As she drifted to sleep, she felt the blanket tucked tighter around her. A small act, but one that filled her heart with warmth she had forgotten existed. That night she dreamed not of fire and screams, but of a world where she was not alone. A world where someone whispered, "Stay," and truly meant it. When morning came, the storm was gone. The sky was gray, and the ground was wet with mud and broken branches. Aaron stood at the doorway of the shelter, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. He carried his weapon at his side and a heavy pack on his shoulders. "Can you walk?" he asked gently. Lyra nodded weakly, though her legs trembled when she tried to stand. He moved to her side, steadying her with his arm. She flinched at first, but did not pull away. Step by step, they left the shelter and began moving toward the hills behind them. The land was quiet, but Aaron knew it would not stay that way. The hunters were relentless, and sooner or later they would return. What he did not know was why they wanted the girl so badly, and what secret she carried inside her heart that made her a target. As they walked, Lyra glanced at him, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak, but no words came, only silence. Still, something inside her was changing. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of trust begin to grow, fragile but real. And as the wind carried the sound of distant footsteps, she realized the truth. Her fight was not over, her journey was only beginning, and the human beside her, he might be the only one who could carry her through the darkness ahead. The path through the hills was rough and narrow. Sharp rocks cut through the mud, and twisted trees reached like claws from the earth. Aaron walked in front, his weapon ready, every sense alert. Lyra followed close behind, her steps small and shaky, but her eyes wide with fear. The silence of the morning was heavy, too heavy. No birds sang, no animals stirred. It was the kind of silence that came only when danger was near. Aaron stopped suddenly, raising his hand. Lyra froze, her heart pounding. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. He didn't answer, only crouched low, listening. A faint sound drifted through the air, the crunch of footsteps, the hiss of low voices. The hunters, Aaron's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "They found us faster than I thought," he muttered. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Her knees weakened, and for a moment, she thought she might collapse. But Aaron's steady voice pulled her back. "Stay close to me no matter what happens." The sound grew louder, closer until shadows moved between the trees. Figures stepped out of the mist, tall and lean with glowing eyes and weapons that pulsed with cruel light. They spread out in a half circle, cutting off every path of escape. One of them hissed, his voice like broken glass. "Give her to us, human, and you may leave alive." Aaron stepped forward, planting his feet firmly on the ground. His weapon gleamed in his hand. "No," he said simply, his voice calm but unshakable. The hunters laughed, a cruel and mocking sound. "She belongs to us. She carries what is ours," the leader snarled, pointing at Lyra. Her chest tightened, her breath short. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs refused to move. How did they know? How could they speak of the secret she had hidden so deep? Aaron's eyes flicked to her just for a moment, but it was enough. He understood now. She carried something important, something worth killing for, and he knew he could not let them take her. The hunters moved as one, rushing forward with deadly speed. Aaron shouted, "Stay behind me," and raised his weapon. The first clash shook the forest, metal against energy, sparks flying in the air. The ground trembled under the weight of the fight. Aaron fought with the strength of a man who refused to surrender. His blade cut through the dark, his rifle roared with fire, but there were too many. For every hunter that fell, two more stepped from the shadows, their glowing eyes locked on Lyra, their weapons hungry for her. She stumbled back, clutching the blanket around her thin body. Fear tore at her, but deep inside, another feeling stirred. Anger, defiance. She had lost everything, but she would not lose this chance. One of the hunters broke past Aaron, lunging toward her. Lyra's scream echoed through the hills in a desperate move. She grabbed a fallen branch and swung with all her strength. The branch cracked against the hunter's mask. Buying her a single moment, Aaron was there instantly, his blade flashing, ending the threat. He turned to her, his voice sharp but filled with concern. "Stay strong, Lyra. Don't give them what they want." The fight dragged on, blood and fire mixing with the sound of growls and screams. Aaron's breath grew heavy, his arms shaking, but his eyes burned with unbroken fire. He had fought alone many times, but this was different. He was no longer fighting only for survival. He was fighting for someone else. Finally, with one last strike, he cut down the leader. The others froze, their glowing eyes flickering with hesitation. Without their leader, their unity broke. They hissed in rage and fear, then melted back into the mist. The forest grew silent again, but the silence was heavier than before. Aaron dropped to one knee, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. Lyra rushed to him, her eyes wide with worry. "You're hurt," she whispered, seeing the blood on his arm. He shook his head, wiping the wound. "It's nothing, but they will come again, stronger, more prepared." Lyra's hands trembled as she touched the edge of his torn armor. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "They want me, because of what I carry." Aaron's gaze locked on hers, steady and fierce. "Then tell me, Lyra, what do you carry that they would burn the world to take?" Her lips parted, but fear silenced her. She wanted to speak, to confess, to explain the weight she bore inside, but the words refused to come. Instead, she lowered her eyes, tears falling onto the dirt. Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and unshaking. "Whatever it is, you're not facing it alone anymore," he said, his voice deep and steady. His words lit a spark in her chest, small but alive. Yet even as hope stirred, the shadow of fear grew. Because deep down, Lyra knew the hunters would never stop, not until they claimed what was inside her. And as thunder rolled across the distant sky, she understood one truth. Her journey with the human was no longer about survival, alone. It was about the secret within her, a secret that could save worlds or destroy them. The forest whispered with danger. Tall trees leaned over the narrow path, their branches twisted like claws. Aaron kept his hand on his weapon as he led Lyra. Deeper into the hills, his eyes scanned every shadow, every flicker of movement. Something in the air felt wrong, too still, too quiet. Lyra walked behind him, clutching the blanket tight around her shoulders. Her stomach still ached from hunger, but her fear was stronger. She could feel it, the weight of unseen eyes following her. Her heart thudded with each step. Suddenly, Aaron raised his fist, signaling her to stop. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. The silence pressed around them, heavy and unnatural. Then came the sound. Slow, deliberate footsteps, not one pair but many, closing in from every side. "They've found us," Aaron whispered, his voice low. Lyra's knees trembled, and she clung to a tree to steady herself. Her voice cracked. "What do they want with me?" Aaron's jaw clenched. "That's what I plan to find out." Dark figures emerged from the mist one by one. Their glowing eyes pierced the shadows, cruel and unblinking. The hunters, they spread out across the path, weapons gleaming with strange light. Their leader, taller than the rest, stepped forward with a grin carved into his mask. "Human," the voice hissed. "Hand her over, and we may let you walk away." Aaron didn't flinch. His grip tightened on his weapon, his stance solid. "She's not yours," he said calmly. The leader laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "She carries something that belongs to us, something greater than you can imagine. Do not throw away your life for her." Lyra's breath hitched, her eyes widened, and she stumbled back. They knew. They knew about the secret buried deep inside her, the very secret that had destroyed her family, her home, her people. Aaron glanced at her briefly, reading the fear in her eyes. He didn't press her, not now, but his voice hardened as he turned back to the hunters. "You'll have to go through me first." The air crackled with tension, then erupted into chaos. The hunters surged forward, weapons slashing. Aaron met them head-on, his blade flashing, his rifle spitting fire. The clash echoed through the forest, a storm of steel and light. Lyra pressed herself against a tree, watching in horror. Aaron fought with the fury of a man who refused to fall. But the hunters were relentless, more than she could count. For every one that fell, another stepped out of the mist. One hunter broke through the line, rushing straight for her. His weapon raised high, glowing with deadly energy. Lyra screamed, her body frozen in fear. At the last moment, she grabbed a jagged stone from the ground and hurled it. It struck his mask with a sharp crack, staggering him. Aaron was there in an instant, cutting the enemy down with a single brutal strike. He turned to her, his face fierce. "Don't give them what they want, Lyra. Fight. Even if it's only to stay alive." Her chest heaved, her arms shaking. But for the first time, she felt something stir inside her. Not just fear, but defiance. She refused to be prey. The battle dragged on, every strike echoing like thunder. Aaron's armor was torn, his breath heavy, but he never backed down. He fought not only with skill, but with a fire that burned brighter than the hunter's cruelty. He was one man against many, yet he stood, unbroken. Finally, with a final roar, Aaron drove his blade into the leader. The figure collapsed with a hiss, glowing eyes flickering out. The remaining hunters paused, their unity shattered. They hissed in frustration, then melted back into the mist, vanishing as quickly as they had come. The forest grew silent once more. Aaron dropped to one knee, blood seeping from a cut along his arm. His chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. Lyra rushed to him, her eyes wide with tears. "You're hurt," she whispered, her voice breaking. He shook his head, forcing himself to stand. "It's nothing, but they'll come again, and next time, they'll be ready." Lyra's heart pounded, her throat tight. She wanted to confess, to tell him the truth about the secret inside her. The reason the hunters would never stop, but the words caught in her throat. Fear chained them down. Aaron rested a hand on her shoulder, steady and firm. His eyes burned with determination. "Whatever you're carrying, whatever they want, you're not facing it alone anymore." Words sank deep into her soul. For so long she had been alone, hunted, broken, hopeless. But now, standing beside this human, she felt something new. Not safety, not yet, but the first spark of strength. And as thunder rolled across the distant sky, Lyra knew her time of running was almost over soon. She would have to choose, keep hiding the secret or trust him with the truth. Either choice could change everything, and in the shadows, the hunters were already preparing to strike again. The rain had started again, a steady drizzle that painted the forest floor in silver. Aaron walked ahead, his steps firm but slower than before, his wound aching though he refused to show it. Lyra followed close, her blanket heavy with water, her mind heavy with fear. She could still hear the hunters' voices in her head, could still feel their glowing eyes locked on her. They wanted what she carried, the secret buried deep inside. And sooner or later she knew she would have to tell him. They stopped near a cave hidden by thick vines. Aaron pulled them aside and gestured for her to enter. The cave was small but dry, with a roof of stone that muted the sound of the storm. Aaron set down his pack, lit a small fire, and turned to her, his face lit by the flickering flames. "You need to tell me, Lyra," he said quietly. "What are they after?" Her heart raced, her lips trembling. She had kept the truth hidden for so long, not out of pride, but out of terror. The last time she had spoken of it, her world had burned, her family had been slaughtered, her people destroyed. She lowered, her eyes, her voice breaking. They hunt me because of my blood." Aaron frowned. "Your blood?" She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I am not just a girl. I am the last daughter of the House of Sarai, once rulers of the Eastern Stars." Aaron said nothing, only listening. Her hands clenched into fists as she went on. "My family guarded a secret, an ancient power locked away long before I was born. The hunters believe I know how to find it. They believe it is hidden inside me." Aaron's brow furrowed. "Do you?" he asked, his voice calm but steady. Lyra shook her head quickly. "I don't know. I was too young when it happened. My mother tried to protect me, but in her last moments, she told me something I've never forgotten." She swallowed, hard, whispering. She said, "They will come for your blood because in it lies the key." Aaron's eyes narrowed, the firelight reflecting in them. "So they want your blood, not just you." Lyra nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes. They believe it can unlock the ancient weapon buried beneath the stars, something strong enough to end worlds." For a long moment, silence filled the cave, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the steady drum of rain. Aaron leaned back, his jaw set. "So that's why they won't stop," he muttered. "They don't just want you. They want what you carry, and they'll burn everything to get it." Lyra's hands shook as she looked at him. "You should leave me, Aaron. If you stay, they will kill you too. You've already risked enough." Her words cracked like broken glass, her heart aching as she spoke them. But Aaron leaned forward, his voice low and fierce. "No, Lyra. I don't leave people behind. I don't care if it's hunters, warlords, or the end of the galaxy itself. I will not abandon you." Her breath caught, her chest tightening. For so long she had been nothing but a burden, a hunted shadow with no future. But his words struck deep, shattering the chains of despair she had carried. She wiped her tears, whispering, "Why? Why would you fight for me?" Aaron's eyes softened, though his voice remained steady. "Because someone has to, and right now I choose to." The fire burned lower as the night deepened. Lyra curled against the cave wall, her mind swirling with fear and fragile hope. Aaron sat awake, sharpening his blade, listening to the storm outside. But even as the rain fell, another sound began to rise, faint at first, then stronger, a howl, not of beasts, but of machines. The cave walls vibrated with a low hum, and a faint red glow lit the sky outside. Aaron rose instantly, weapon in hand. Lyra's eyes widened in terror. "They found us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Aaron pulled her up, his voice, urgent but calm. "Then we move now." They rushed out into the storm, the forest alive with shadows. Shapes moved between the trees, not just hunters, but machines, drones that scanned the ground with burning red light. The hunters had returned, stronger, faster, more determined than before. And this time they would not be satisfied with chasing. This time they meant to take her. Aaron tightened his grip on her hand, pulling her close as the light swept over the trees. Lyra's heart raced, her breath sharp and quick. She had finally told him the truth. finally revealed the secret of her blood, but now the hunters knew exactly where she was. And as the machines closed in, she understood the full weight of her mother's words. Her blood was not only her curse, it was the spark of a war that could consume them all. The forest around them seemed to close in. The storm had turned from a whisper to a roar, the wind carrying the sound of distant engines. Aaron moved quickly, his eyes sharp, his grip on Lyra's hand firm. He knew that if they stayed in one place too long, they would be caught. The hum of the machines was growing louder. The red light from their scanning beams swept across the trees, cutting through the mist like knives. "Stay low," Aaron muttered, pulling Lyra behind a cluster of thick bushes. She pressed herself against the damp earth, trying to control her breathing. The hunt had begun in earnest, and they were the prey, but her mind kept racing. Her secret, the reason they were hunted, the reason they could never stop. She hadn't expected this much danger, this much fury from the hunters. The machines passed overhead, their sensors searching the ground. The cold red light washed over them as they crouched. Heartbeats in sync. Lyra's breath was shallow and every part of her screamed to run. But Aaron's calm voice reminded her to stay still. Not yet. Wait for them to pass. Minutes stretched like hours. Every second felt like it could be their last. Lyra could hear the low growl of the machines, the hiss of the hunters as they barked orders. Her chest tightened, the weight of everything they were running from pressing down on her. She thought of her family, of the house of Sarai. She thought of her mother's last words, the reason behind the madness. Her blood carried a power that could change the course of the galaxy. But she didn't know how to unlock it, and she didn't want to know. Finally, Aaron tugged her up, his grip tight and urgent. "They're moving! We run now!" They dashed into the thick underbrush, their feet slipping on wet leaves and mud. The storm made the ground unstable, but it also helped cover their tracks. The red beams flashed behind them, but they were too fast. Lyra's heart raced with the rhythm of their steps. She had never run like this before, not even when her home was under siege. This was a different kind of fight, a fight for survival. Suddenly a shout rang out behind them, the sound of the hunters closing in. Lyra looked over her shoulder, seeing one of the machines break through the trees. Its massive form towering over the forest. A hunter screamed orders as the drone's red light locked onto them. "Keep going, don't look back," Aaron shouted. Lyra pushed forward, her legs burning, but the fear spurred her on. Her breath came in sharp gasps, and she could hear the machines closing in. There was no time for hesitation, no time for second thoughts. They had to get to the hills, to the safety of the higher ground. But the forest seemed endless. The storm seemed endless, and the sound of the machines seemed endless. Aaron's voice cut through the pounding rain. "Lyra, take the left path, go around the ridge." Without thinking, she veered to the left, sprinting up the steep incline. She could hear the hum of the machine behind her, feel the heat from its red beams as they swept over her. The path was narrow and treacherous, but it was her only hope. Her heart hammered in her chest, her legs aching with every step. Aaron was right behind her, but the drone was gaining. It fired a pulse of energy, striking a tree nearby, splintering it into 1,000 pieces. Lyra screamed, throwing herself to the side. She felt the air stir as the blast passed, missing her by inches. Her hand grazed the sharp edge of a rock, cutting her palm. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. At the top of the ridge, she paused for a second. She turned to look for Aaron, but he was not behind her. The machine had caught up. The red light flooded her vision, and then she saw it. The hunter was standing in front of her, a weapon, raised, his eyes glowing with malicious intent. "Lyra, no!" Aaron's voice rang out from behind. Lyra turned, seeing him barreling down the ridge. He was too far to reach in time. She was alone, trapped. The hunter grinned, and Lyra felt her legs give way beneath her. She had nowhere to go, no escape. And then the sound of the drone's engine roaring louder, but it wasn't firing, it was retreating. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as the hunter turned. The machine had stopped advancing. It hovered silently in the sky, its sensors locked onto something else. Lyra looked around, confusion flooding her mind. What was happening? And then she saw it. A flash of blue light across the sky, a sudden fierce glow that lit up the storm-darkened clouds. The machine froze, its hum faltering, and the hunter, sensing the change, raised his weapon. But before he could fire, a blinding light filled the forest, a sound like thunder shook the earth, and everything went white. The world around them erupted into chaos. The blinding light from the sky faded, but its power lingered. The trees trembled. The ground quaked. Lyra's heart raced, her chest tight with fear. She felt as though the very air was alive with energy. The hunter in front of her hesitated, his weapon trembling in his hands. Even he felt it, the shift in the air, the presence of something far more powerful than the machines. Aaron stumbled onto the ridge, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had seen countless battles, countless dangers, but nothing like this. The hunter turned, his body stiffening as if he sensed the threat closing in. Then a voice, low and commanding, rang out from the shadows. "It's over, Huntress." Lyra's eyes widened, her breath caught in her throat. The voice was familiar, but the figure that stepped forward was something she had never seen. A woman taller than any human, clad in silver armor that seemed to shimmer with light. Her eyes glowed an icy blue, and her presence filled the forest like a storm. She was no ordinary being. Lyra's blood ran cold. She had heard tales of such warriors, but she never thought she would meet one. This was a Sarai guardian, one of the ancient protectors of her people. "Who are you?" Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. The guardian's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment Lyra thought she saw pity in them. "I am the last of my kind, the final guardian of Sarai," the woman said, her voice both soft and thunderous. "The weapon you carry inside you is not just power. It is the heart of an ancient force, a force that could rebuild or destroy all things." The hunter took a step back, his weapon lowering slightly. "I knew it," he hissed. "The rumors were true. She is the key." Aaron stepped forward, his weapon raised. "Who are you and what do you want with her?" The guardian's gaze shifted to him, her face impassive. "I want nothing from her except to keep her safe." Lyra took a step back, confusion flooding her mind. "Safe?" she asked. "How? What do you mean?" "The hunters. They've been chasing me for so long. Why now?" The guardian took another step closer, her presence almost suffocating. "The hunters are nothing more than pawns, tools of a far greater force that seeks to control the power inside you, Lyra." Her voice softened as she spoke her name. "The true threat comes from the stars, from those who would use your blood to wage war on the galaxy, to tear down the very fabric of existence itself." Lyra's heart pounded, her hands shaking. This power," she whispered. "I don't understand. I don't know how to control it. I never asked for it." The guardian's expression softened, for the first time showing a hint of empathy. "You didn't have a choice, Lyra. You are the last descendant of the Sarai, and the blood you carry is the key to unlocking an ancient weapon buried in the stars." Her gaze hardened as she looked toward the horizon. "The hunters are merely a distraction. Their true masters are coming, and when they arrive, they will stop at nothing to take what is yours." Lyra's mind raced, the weight of her mother's final words crashing down on her. She had always thought her family's power was a curse, but now it was clear that it was the only hope for survival, the last hope for the galaxy. Aaron moved to her side, his face filled with determination. "If you say the hunters are just a distraction, then what happens next? What are we supposed to do?" The guardian's eyes locked onto his, measuring him, assessing him. "You stand and fight," she said, "for Lyra, for the galaxy, and for your own survival." The hunter snarled, raising his weapon again. "You think she's the key to saving this broken world? You're all fools." But before anyone could react, the sound of engines roared in the distance. A fleet of ships appeared on the horizon, their dark shapes cutting through the storm. The hunter's eyes widened in terror. "No, it's too soon." He turned to flee, but the guardian raised her hand, a wave of power sweeping through the air. The hunter froze, his body rigid, unable to move. Lyra stared at the fleet of ships, her heart sinking. The dark shapes descended, and she knew deep in her soul that the time for running was over. The true battle had begun. Aaron stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the guardian. "Tell us what to do now. We can't just stand here and wait." The Guardian turned to him, her face a mask of cold determination. "We fight, or we die trying, and you will fight for her," she said. "Because if you don't, everything ends here." The first of the ships landed and the ground shook under its weight. The Hunter's true masters had arrived and they were not here to negotiate. The ground trembled as the ships descended from the sky. They were massive, dark ships, their hulls gleaming. In the rain, their engines roaring like thunder. Lyra's heart pounded, her breath shallow as she watched the ships land. This was it, the final moment she had been running from her whole life. She had no more time to hide, no more time to wait. The true enemies had arrived and there was no place left to run. Aaron stepped in front of her, his face set, his weapon ready. He glanced at the Guardian, his voice tight. "What now?" The Guardian stood still, her eyes fixed on the ships as they landed with a heavy thud. "They've come for her," she said, her voice cold. "And if they take her, all is lost." Lyra's mind raced, her hands trembling at her sides. She had kept this secret inside for so long, a secret that could now destroy everything. Her blood carried power, something beyond her understanding. The galaxy's future rested on her shoulders, and she was just a girl who had never asked for any of it. But now, there was no choice. The first of the soldiers stepped out of the ship, tall and armored in black, their eyes glowing with an unnatural red. They spread out, their presence suffocating like a wave of darkness rolling over the forest. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She had seen their kind before. These were the true leaders, the ones who had controlled the Hunters. Their hands held power that could wipe out entire worlds, and they had come for her. The Guardian stepped forward, her silver armor gleaming under the stormy sky. "They'll kill us all if we don't act," she said, her voice commanding. "You have a choice, Lyra." Lyra's eyes widened. "A choice?" she whispered. "How can I choose when I don't even understand what's happening?" The Guardian's gaze softened for a moment, but her voice remained firm. "You're the key to an ancient power, Lyra, and you must decide whether to use it or destroy it. Your blood carries the weapon that could either save or destroy this galaxy. If you give it to them, the power will be used to create an empire built on death and conquest. If you choose to destroy it, the galaxy may fall into chaos, but at least it will have a chance to rebuild." Lyra felt the weight of the words settle on her chest. She was the key to everything, to the survival of billions of lives. But she had no idea how to wield that kind of power. She had never wanted this responsibility, never asked for it. And now, she was being asked to make a choice that could change the fate of the entire universe. She looked at Aaron, her voice barely a whisper. "What should I do?" Aaron's eyes softened, and for the first time he reached out and touched her arm. "You do what you think is right," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I'll stand with you no matter what." The soldiers were closer now, their weapons raised. The time for talk was over. The Guardian's sword gleamed in the storm as she stepped between Lyra and the soldiers. "If you won't choose, we'll make the choice for you," she said. "But know this, Lyra, whatever happens next, you must embrace your power no matter the cost, no matter the consequence." Lyra's heart pounded, her mind racing. She could feel the power stirring within her, that ancient force her blood carried. It called to her, a voice in her mind, silent but undeniable. But could she control it? Could she wield it without losing herself? In that moment she realized something. This power wasn't just about destruction, it was about choice. It had always been about choice. Her blood had the potential to bring life or death, but she could decide which path to take, with one final breath. Lyra made her decision. She stepped forward, pushing past the Guardian and Aaron. The soldiers froze, their eyes wide as her body glowed with a brilliant light. Her blood, her power surged through her like wildfire. The sky above seemed to crack with the force of it. The ground shook beneath their feet. Lyra raised her hands and with a single thought, the power within her exploded. A wave of energy swept through the forest, through the soldiers, through the ships. The soldiers screamed, their bodies torn apart by the force of the energy. The ships trembled, their systems short-circuiting as the energy overwhelmed them. The forest around them burned with the intensity of the blast. Aaron pulled Lyra back, shielding her as the light faded. When the energy cleared, the soldiers were gone, their ships nothing more than smoldering wrecks. The Guardian stood nearby, her face unreadable. "You've done it," she said quietly. "You've saved us all." But Lyra didn't feel like a hero. She felt empty, drained. She had unleashed the power of an entire galaxy, and now there was nothing left. Nothing except silence. Aaron stood by her side, his hand on her shoulder. "You made the right choice," he said softly. But Lyra only shook her head. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what the right choice was, or if there even was one." The world around them was still, the storm passing. But Lyra knew one thing for sure. Her journey wasn't over. The galaxy was in her hands, and now she would have to learn how to rebuild it.